From the oil fields to the blockchain revolution, one man saw what others missed. Bitcoin Ben, an ex-truck driver turned Bitcoin pioneer, didn't just change his life. He's changing the game for everyone. This is the story of the Founders Group Worldwide, where private key capital meets American innovation. Watch your portfolio grow across real estate, resorts, mining, and energy. All Bitcoin aligned, all building wealth the new way. This isn't just investment. This is community. This is belonging. From exclusive club events to global networking, we're not just making money, we're making history. The old rich had their secrets. Now, it's your turn. Powered by Private Key Capital, Founders Group Venture Capital opens the door for everyone in the world. The revolution isn't coming. It's here. And it's time to choose your side. Join the new rich revolution. Call 941-391-3882. Visit foundersgroupworldwide.com. Your future starts now.
And we are live. Good morning, everyone. It's your favorite truck driver in the whole wide world, ex-truck driver in the whole wide world. It's Bitcoin Ben. Okay, today, guys, we're going deep. We are going deep into the future. About a year, if that, maybe 2 years, if we're lucky. All right. Number one, I want to outline this. There's an episode that we are going to watch from a guy named David Shapiro. All right. David Shapiro is probably the most honest, progressive on what's really going on with AI and also what is going on with the monetary system. You have probably heard of an idea called shareholder capital. And this is where everyone who is a citizen of America receives money from the industries of America, i.e., what Trump is basically doing, where the U.S. government owns shares of large corporations that are here in America. That's the future taxation base. Let me put it that way. All right, we've all heard Trump, I think it was a week ago or so, he basically explained, hey guys, pretty soon you won't have to pay taxes. And then he announces, we're giving $1,776 Christmas bonus to all of our military people. This is, and mind you, I do not agree with this. This is a bad fucking idea. When you put the government in a position where the people are reliant on money from the government, that's a bad idea. Even if it comes from Trump, it's a bad fucking idea. But I understand it. I see why he's actually doing it. And I'm just going to be blunt. Most Americans are not smart enough or educated enough or informed or even have curiosity of watching what's unrolling economically. We all know these people. They're just kind of flying through life. Oh, look at the pretty colors. Oh, did you see what's on TikTok last second? They are not involved in the real world of what's happening economically. If they were, they'd all own Bitcoin and know why. Because everything is changing from AI, robotics, and efficiencies. Guys, the reason that gasoline is cheap, it hit $1.90. I think it was in was it in Texas or Oklahoma? It hit $1.90. Guys, the cheapest in my life that I've ever seen it was 79 cents a gallon. And that was back in 91, 90, no, like 93. Because I remember, and this is going to show how old I am. I remember exactly where I was. I was in St. Louis at Grabois and Higgy, right at a early Quick Trip. This was when they weren't really as popular, but there were a few of them around. It was 79 cents a gallon. I used a payphone at Quick Trip, called my dad, because he had this huge Chevy truck, and it had a tank on each. He had a tank on one side and a tank on the other side, so that thing held like 40 gallons of gas. And I remember I called him from the payphone and said, "Old man, I know you're at the bowling alley. On your way home, swing over to the Quick Trip at Grabois and Higgy and get you some gas. It's 79 cents a gallon." And sure the hell enough, as soon as he left Shrewsbury bowling lanes, he swung over and he filled up his tanks. That's the cheapest I ever saw it. I have a friend in Texas who like oils his whole like bread and butter. That's what he watches. That's what he sells, is like oil futures and shit like that. The futures market's going lower. It's going lower. And there's rumors that there's, within the next month or so, there's going to be a $1.20 futures market. Now, $1.20. Now we're actually that's oil refined into regular gasoline. Right? And he said, and I will quote him, "Dude, we'll be under $1 within a year and some change, because there's no floor." You have to realize, guys, that and they haven't brought this out yet, there has been technological advances in refining oil using AI that they're implementing this year. They will be able to produce, let's just say their production time will be cut in half. So what actually took about an 8-hour cycle is going to take about a 4-hour cycle, which means their daily production is going to double. Let that sink in. That's right now. And in some areas, like I said, we're at like $1.90. If their production capabilities are going to double, he said basically you can cut that price about in half. So if we're at $1.90, that means we're at about 94 cents a gallon within a year and some change. Now, remember, that is at today's prices with the inflation pressures of the printing of the money. Remember, in the last about 6 years almost, our money value, our purchasing price has dropped about 30% so far in the last 6 years. So reverse inflation adjusted on 94 cents a gallon would be if 6 years ago you actually paid about 61 cents a gallon. Let that sink in. The inflation adjusted equivalent, if they wouldn't have had all this crazy inflation, the gas in about a year and a half would be about 61 cents a gallon. We haven't seen that price since the early 80s. That's coming to everything. And also, I'm telling you guys, this is about to get fucking nuts. Oh, I'm sorry. Also, my oil guy in Texas is basically explaining how how this year they're rolling out oil well construction and maintenance with robots. Oil workers, you aren't going to need rig workers. You aren't. And he said that's here's an example that he actually gave me. They brought out a robot from China, not even one of the, like nowhere near what Elon Musk has. They had it trained for weekly maintenance in 45 minutes. The robot watched a human perform the weekly maintenance, or no, I don't think it was weekly. I think it was monthly. The monthly maintenance and security checks, and it repeated the process and understood the pressure variations. If you don't know how an oil rig works, it's PSI. Never mind, that's irrelevant. But it understood the process of doing the maintenance and the checks. Then they drove it from one rig that they trained it on, took it to another rig that was slightly older parts. It recognized that the parts were older and then recommended part changes based on historical information of part failure. So it knew approximately how long this gauge or whatever typically lasted until it failed, and then recommended changes of those parts and performed the maintenance with no new training. They showed it once and it got it. And this is not the most advanced robot. Elon's um, X robot or whatever the fuck you call it, Robob. That's much more advanced. Its hands are much more advanced. And remember, this is cloud AI. This isn't trapped knowledge. So now that that robot knows how to do that maintenance, it's in the cloud. It's shared knowledge. All of the robots linked with that AI cloud network now has that knowledge. Let me explain. All right. Let's say you have a bunch of robots on a job site. Okay, thank you. Yes, it's Optimus. Couldn't they named it something else? Because every time I think of Optimus, I think of Optimus Prime. You know, the tractor trailer that would switch into a robot. Come on, guys. Get fucking creative. Quit living off of the remains of the old and let's move on to some more creative fucking names. But let's say you have a group of robots on a job site, and this is coming, guys. They are building houses using robots. This whole idea, oh, the plumbers are safe for at least another 5 years. Horse shit. Horse shit. If you have 8 robots, all right, on a job site, and they're set to build 8 houses. All right, they're all working on one house each. Whatever. All right, this is just a rough example. If robot number 1, if like something happens, or it actually, hell, I don't know, like falls off a roof or something, another robot in that organization on that job site can literally climb up onto the roof and know exactly the last nail that last robot put in. Remember, these things, they don't need blueprints. They don't need any of the referral information printed out. The blueprint is in their memory already. They don't need a blueprint. They have the formula for the house. And they can work 12-hour shifts. And if it's an empty subdivision or a fresh build where there is like absolutely no HOA or any of that bullshit, they can work 24 hours a day. Remember, robots don't need light. Robots have environmental awareness because the robots overlap awareness. If there's a robot on the left-hand side of the roof and there's a robot on the right-hand side of the roof, each of them have visual environmental awareness of each other. This robot can see and process what's going through this robot's eyes. And everything works in uniform. Then when I worked on a job site, all right, think about this. Now, those of you that have never worked construction, you might not get this, but I think you will. If you had a guy up on the roof, let's say he is laying down plywood. You had him, and then down on the ground, you had what was called a cut guy. You'd yell the measurements Or if it was an odd cut, you would draw it out on a piece of wood and you'd fling it down to them. You don't need that anymore. All of them know what the next piece is. And remember, guys, a lot of these houses, they're going to be cookie cutters. So they will have already created all of the cuts off-site, shipped it to the site, and then just assembled like Legos. There was a house about a month ago that was printed to completion in 1 week. And I think it was about 2,400 square feet. It was printed to completion in 1 week. That includes roof, all the gutters, everything. Electric, plumbing, all done in 1 week. A 2,400 square foot, and mind you, this was printed with Crete, so it's completely hurricane proof. The whole thing is one solid pour of concrete. Labor, human involvement. The only thing we are going to contribute is the want. That's it. When you want a house, that's the only thing that a human is going to contribute to it eventually. Where you choose a house you want, and then the AI, robotics, will build it. It's going to be absolutely incredible. Now, I want to play you guys a video, and I think it's about 21 minutes long. Now, mind you, heads up, this guy's a socialist. This guy's a progressive, right? But he's explaining the future economy, and I'll be damned if he ain't right. He even explains how the smart thing to do now is plug your investments into the future system. This is the equivalent of realizing in 1930 whatever, the highway system was coming. And you have the road map, you have the construction map for the new highway system. And a lot of Rockefeller did this a lot. He bought as much land along the new highway system as he could. That's exactly what we are doing. I know where this is going. A lot of people know where this is going, but they're not letting the average Joe know. They're creating this wealth, and all these shares of like OpenAI and all that, and Elon's going public. They're bringing all of the companies public because everyone who knows. Once the shares hit the New York Stock Exchange, that's the dumb money. That's once everyone in the creation cycle is in. They've all actually bought their shares super cheap. The liquidity point is the launch of the IPO. That's when all of the owners, seed round, A round, B round, C round, that's when all of those guys, they take a good chunk of their shares and they sell it to the public. Where the fuck do you think they're getting the shares for the IPO? Bingo, Michael Phelps nails it. In the gold rush, the people who got the gold, or who were out there shoveling the gold out of the rivers and the mines, they weren't the rich ones. It was the people selling the picks and the blue jeans that were the rich ones. That's who made the money. All right, I am going to play this. All right, now remember, I told you this guy's a progressive, but that don't mean he's wrong. I politically completely fucking disagree with this. I can't call him a retard. Well, here, I'll call him a political retard. But what he's saying economically is absolutely accurate. And if you're like me, you are going to find this fascinatingly interesting.
Good morning, everybody. So I have a quick confession to make, and that is that I have been holding back on you. I have been avoiding really just going all in on my burning passion, which is post-labor economics. So what I'm here to tell you today is that the content of my channel is going to evolve. Now, you've known me as a speculator on the future of AI and making predictions, some of them more dubious than others. Honestly, some of that was chasing hype because that's how social media grows. I don't make the algorithm's choices. The algorithm is the algorithm. However, what I'm going to do now is just double down on what I actually care about and what I actually put a tremendous amount of time into, which is post-labor economics. Now, for the inaugural episode, what we're going to talk about today is the biggest question, which is a lot of people just say, I don't see how anything survives this transition, because for people paying attention, it seems like it's no longer a question. It's a foregone conclusion that artificial intelligence and robots are going to dramatically change the economy. There's, of course, plenty of skeptics still out there. They say, well, AI still can't do, blah, 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 or, robots are still on the horizon. But for anyone who looks at the thermodynamics, anyone who looks at the technology, anyone who looks at the math, humans have no moat in the long run. There is no physical law that says machines cannot do work better, faster, cheaper, and safer than humans. So then what is it for humans to do? Now, what I wanted to do here, and this is the final providing some context for this presentation so that you understand, is we're going to look at the macroeconomic plumbing of how does money actually get into your house? Because at the end of the day, what people really, really want, is to have basically purchasing power at the household income level. So if wages from labor and jobs are no longer how you get money into the household, how does that actually happen? So let's talk about it. In today's world, the circle looks like this. This is the primary circulation mechanism. So you have household spending, which drives business revenue, which drives business growth, which means that the businesses hire more people and they pay more wages to households, and then the cycle continues. This is the primary cycle right now. And you might say, well, where does money enter into the equation? The money enters into the equation from another party outside of this, where the Fed makes money and lends it out. But this is the primary hydrological cycle of the economy right now. Now, the thing is, though, if this step breaks, where businesses stop hiring more people, which, by the way, we're already starting to see, then the entire cycle breaks. This is, I think everyone in my audience probably knows this, and if you don't, now you do. So without further ado, that is the problem. Now, you might say, okay, so we do want to address, like, how does money actually get to your household? So from the top down, we say first the Federal Reserve does a liquidity injection, banks lend to businesses for expansion, then the businesses use that money to hire more people, and then with the people that are hired, that's how you get distribution. So then, of course, from here, households pay taxes. So there's payroll taxes, there's income taxes, but all that's going to break. So everything, the kind of the top down, and this is not trickle down theory, by the way. It's just top down because we organized the Federal Reserve at the top because this is the originator of money injection into the economy, and then the household is kind of the terminal point, and then the cycle kind of restarts from there. But you get the idea. So these are two ways of visualizing how the economy works today. So you have this circular transition between businesses and hiring and households, and then you have this top-down view from the Fed to the household. Either way, household distributions, that's how money mostly gets into households today. It's not the entire way. There's obviously government programs, transfers like welfare, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, those sorts of things. That makes up about 20% of all household income in America, at least. And then capital returns, which is rental properties and other things, as another about 18 to 20%, depending on how you measure it. So then, all right, that's how the world works today. What I just showed is how the world works today. Now, the primary problem, and this is what everyone has sensed since about the 70s or 80s, is that productivity continues to go up where the labor component continues to decouple and go down. So the reason that this is happening is very obvious. It's very simple. It's technology. And it didn't even require artificial intelligence. Everything from industrial automation to computers to internet to databases began the modern digital decoupling that we have seen over the last 4 decades now. Now, really, when this started was about 7 decades ago in the 50s, because that's when industrial engineering and industrial automation really started to ramp up. So the very beginning, it didn't even require robots. It was just industrial engineering that allowed factories and other things to become more efficient and more streamlined, which meant that you needed fewer humans. It has only accelerated as the various types of automation ramp up. Now, for specificity, when we're talking economics, the term automation literally just means labor saving technology. So whenever we talk about automation, that is, it's like it's there to take jobs. It's there to do stuff that humans otherwise would have had to do. And we're not here yet. We're at the flattening part, and we're about to be here where the labor and wages are actually negative over time rather than positive. But they have been flat for about 20 to 40 years, depending on how you measure it. So that's what's happening. That's the problem. So here's the breakdown. So when you have this breakdown, you have all the capital and assets piling up at the top. So that's wealth concentration, that's capital deepening. That is basically what we're seeing right now. You're literally seeing it in real time with the trillions of dollars being invested in energy infrastructure and data centers and chips around the world. That is literally the prelude to this stage of the decoupling. Sorry, a little bit of a stutter there. That's how you know I'm not AI. All right, so you have this capital concentration up here. So you have this capital deepening and capital intensification. And so what happens though is as that gets invested, then the businesses just don't need to hire people as much. So then less money gets to households. Now this creates problems on several fronts because it's not just, oh, well, as a household, we don't have jobs anymore. So then we can't purchase stuff in the economy. So that drops aggregate demand. It also drops the tax base. So when a lot of people say, oh, well, why would the elites, why would the billionaires ever allow this to happen? You know who's going to really react is the government. The government's going to say, well, if our people are not able to pay taxes, then we're not able to drive the economy. So the government is going to say, we have to tax someone. So they're going to say, who actually does have the money? And so that's going to be the people with all the capital. So this is one of the ways of understanding as to where the paradigm shift is coming. And of course, in America and many other nations, we already see that that this is kind of breaking down, especially as household income and the wage component, labor component of total GDP has been falling for literally years. Now it hasn't fallen much. It's gone from like 56% to 52%. But when you look at the global GDP and you say, okay, well, it used to be that the labor component of GDP was 56% and now it's 52%. That's 4% that has been redirected from households back to capital. And that represents trillions of dollars a year in global GDP. So that's trillions and trillions of dollars every year that is just recycling back up to capital and not ending up in households. And that number is moving in only one direction, from 56% to 52%. And in more developed nations, it's even lower. I think in America, it's like 48%. And it's not going to reverse with more capital deepening, with more capital intensification, which means data centers, GPUs, and robots. That's not going to get any better. So we're on a one-way trip. Now, okay, so those are the problems. What is the new paradigm? So the great rewiring, we are shifting from a labor-mediated to a capital-mediated cycle. This is the primary intuition. This is the primary change. And by the way, I didn't invent this idea. Many economists who recognize that there is a decoupling from productivity and wages already say that, well, the solution is that we have to broaden capital ownership. Great, cool. I took that idea and ran with it. So the current regime is the central bank lends to the commercial banks, which lends to the businesses, which the businesses then hire people. And so you have wages and jobs, and that gets to household. And then households allow you to purchase whatever you need. It allows you to buy a home. It allows you to buy groceries and cars and then pay taxes. Now that's going to break down because this entire scheme where the businesses hire humans breaks down. So what comes next is we have automated assets. And those automated assets are not necessarily government assets. This is not socialism. This is not communism. This is just the automated economy. So whether or not a government owns a data center or whether or not Google owns a data center doesn't matter. The origin of value in the future is these automated assets. Now, that's not to say that the central bank and the commercial banks won't exist. They will still be there to fund the data centers, the solar farms, the robots and those sorts of things to lend out to the businesses. But the businesses, so you're swapping the businesses for automated assets. And those automated assets then pay taxes directly to public funds, sovereign wealth funds, and those sorts of things, open payment rails. And so then what we get is just automatic dividends. So rather than going all the way back through the central bank and lending and loaning and all those other fun things, we all get dividends from ownership. Now you might say, I hear you. You say, well, I don't have any capital to begin with. That's fine, because you won't need any capital for these baseline universals. So there's universal basic income, which can come over automated payment rails. And then there's also automated disbursements, like what we already see in the Alaska Permanent Fund, which, again, doesn't need a central bank. They have their own wealth fund, and then that pays out directly to households. So basically, we take the model that works, the Alaska Permanent Fund, Norway's Sovereign Wealth Fund, and we say, let's just do that everywhere with everything that is automated. And so then the money comes from, instead of wages, it comes from dividends. And of course, Andrew Yang called UBI a freedom dividend. That was still a form of a tax. So that's technically a transfer, not a dividend, but you get the idea. But the idea here, though, is still quite simply that households end up with income and the consumer-based economy continues chugging along nice and happy. That is the primary intuition change. So step one, you have to rewire the input from wages to dividends. So right now, you churn out money, and with labor, you're actually churning out money for the owners, not yourself. So that's one of the primary things that a lot of people have been unhappy about, is because with capital intensification, it was no longer, hey, I have a shoe shop, or, I'm a cartwright or a smith, and I get to keep most of the proceeds from my business. Now somebody else owns the machines and you just operate the machines for them. And then, you see the little hand taking the output. So people aren't happy with this arrangement and have not been happy with it for a long, long time. And when I say a long time, I mean like more than a century and a half. It's been since about 1820 or so, like when Engels' Pause started. So it's been like 2 centuries that people have really been unhappy with this arrangement. So instead, we all become members of the ownership economy. So we all become capital owners. Now, some of that is going to be direct ownership stuff that you own, stocks, bonds, those sorts of things, soul-bound tokens in DAOs. But some of it is also going to be through the state, through inclusive capital. We'll talk about that in a second. So that's the asset-backed universals, which is basically a sovereign wealth fund. Now, the idea then is that you just sit back and collect income. Now, you might say, well, what am I going to do with all that spare time? You can still find other ways to magnify your wealth. The idea, though, is that ultimately you won't need to, because you're not going to really have much that you can contribute to the economy, which is fine. Now, you might say, well, if we're all useless eaters, then blah, blah, blah. But as I already showed, the government is going to want to get taxes from somewhere, and they're going to want the consumption-based economy to work somehow. So even as a useless eater, and again, that is literally a Nazi term. So I just want you to understand the historical context that Nazis called disabled people useless eaters. But I did not bring that term up. My audience brought it up because that represents the visceral fear that many of you have. Even if all you are is a consumer, so I'll just say consumer from now on. If all you are is a consumer, you still drive the economy because you create those demands. So the demand for houses, the demands for groceries, that demand still drives the economy. So your intrinsic demands, that's kind of what I'm calling it from the perspective of new civic social contract. Your intrinsic demands as a human will still drive the economy. All right, so step 2, upgrade the plumbing with open payment rails. This is really, really critical. So the current friction is that today's systems are slow, expensive, and run through private gatekeepers who take fees. And it's not even the stimulus check distribution. It is the Visa networks. It is the private banks. It is the SWIFT network. It is all those things. So what we then need is we need digital public infrastructure, which, by the way, already exists. So India has UPI, which I think is the Universal Payment Infrastructure or Index. I can't remember what the UPI stand for. Anyways, so India had this problem where there was a shadow economy where everything was an informal cash-based economy and people just weren't using digital payments. So much of the Indian economy was not visible. And so what they did was they created an open standard so that payments could be processed instantly, digitally, which then, of course, India did that, one, to crack down a little bit on corruption, for taxes, for visibility, and that sort of thing. And Brazil has done the same thing with their Pix network. So instant, cheap, direct money movement. And they do use blockchain, not for every transaction, but for the ledger. So that way you keep track of every transaction in an immutable blockchain, and you can contribute to that in a decentralized manner. So what we're talking about now is saying, okay, if we have public funds and sovereign wealth funds and public dividends and those sorts of things, there's no need for any middlemen. You don't need banks. You don't need central banking digital currencies, which, you might say, well, isn't UPI and PIX CDBC? No, actually, these are not CDBC. So then you have all these intermediaries, all these rent seekers. So rent seeking is the big problem. And so American banks and Western banks are all fighting like crazy to prevent the West from adopting stuff like India's UPI and Brazil's PIX. However, friction is economic inefficiency. So in the long run, my hope is that America and Europe will start adopting things like UPI and PIX, or at least build our own. Interestingly enough, many nations are starting to, even in Europe, are starting to adopt these standards to allow them. So Europe might adopt this sooner than America, but the financial industry, the banking industry in America is so profitable. I mean, you've seen Wolf of Wall Street, you get it. We've been talking about Wall Street's greed for a long time, so I don't need to kick that dead horse. Step 3 is shift the tax base from labor to capital and rents. So right now, we have this declining base of income and payroll taxes and blah, 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 blah. So again, what I'm telling you is that there are multiple systemic incentives, not just for the billionaires, not just for the government, for everyone, to move the base from labor and payroll over to automation and robot taxes, to land value taxes, to resource rents and consumption-based taxes. All of those things can replace and fund the government, and you still get the dividends from automation. This is how we wire up this new system. The new wiring is designed to maintain the velocity of money. So we have households, so everything starts here. Households still consume, the businesses still pay taxes and still pay rents, and those taxes and rents go to the shared capital funds, the sovereign wealth funds, and those are paid out as dividends. So the new cycle is even simpler and even shorter than the original 5-step cycle, although it's still more or less the same thing, where you have households, businesses, banks, and then, everyone lives happily ever after. You still have the Fed still injecting some capital because you still have businesses still have capital expenses and operating expenses. Energy won't be free, factories won't be free, land won't be free, robots will still have expenses associated with them. So the capital injection still comes at the businesses. It's just that the businesses are going to be automated in the future. Now, you might say, okay, well, how long is this going to take? It looks like right now there is very strong consensus that 2032 is the major tipping point. I came to that number independently, and I've got another video cooking where 2032 is when economists think that we're really going to see GDP start to really rise sharply due to automation. It might be sooner. We all tend to overestimate how long it's going to take for some of these things to take impact. So 2030 to 2032 is when we're going to see the fully automated business really take off. And so by then, we're probably going to need to have some UBI and some sovereign dividends in place. So this isn't about rewriting central banking. It's about building a better distribution channel. So the current quantitative easing is about the Fed buys bonds, pushing up asset prices and hoping the wealth trickles down. Basically, if you make the economy more solvent, people will start spending, businesses will start hiring, and things will get on, the logjam will unlock. Now, you could characterize this as quantitative easing for the people. With direct digital wallets, a central bank or treasury can inject liquidity directly to households during a crisis, ensuring it circulates immediately through consumption. This is exactly what we saw with the stimulus checks during the pandemic. So essentially, as the economy comes grinding to a halt because AI and robots force companies to lay people off, we're going to end up having stimulus checks, but forever. Now, those stimulus checks are not necessarily going to...
Okay, I have to jump in here because let me bring this back up. What he's explaining right here is quantitative easing for the people. With the direct digital wallets, a central bank or treasury can inject liquidity directly into the households during a crisis, ensuring it circulates immediately through consumption. This is what, as a progressive, he's an idiot. Because if they can inject liquidity to inject inflation, because that's what he's talking about, inflating the local currency at the household level, that in accordance with that, the only way this system works is if you can not only inject liquidity, but you can remove liquidity directly from the people. He's explaining when they give you money. Well, their goal is inflation at a certain point, where if there's an area of America that is depressed or needs capital, they're just replacing the Federal Reserve of St. Louis with everyone in St. Louis having a wallet that's linked directly to the Federal Reserve. Because the old system is we have a Federal Reserve office in New York, in Chicago, I think Chicago, St. Louis, Texas, over on the West Coast. So those were the nodes. Those offices, those Federal Reserve district offices were the wallet that he's explaining. It went to them, and then they distribute it through through all of the local banks into the checking accounts or into lending money for local consumption. This is removing the physical locations of the Federal Reserve. And just you'll have a wallet on your phone where you will get your dividends. This is digital communism, because what they call it is shareholder capitalism. But it isn't capitalistic because the money isn't capitalistic money. It's communistic because the money originates at the Federal Reserve. There is no production cost of the money. They just print it. And here, they don't even have to fucking crank up the printers. They don't even have to have someone printing it. They just have to add some zeros to a fucking computer. This is the Brave New World model, where it's just so easy. They make it so convenient for you to be a slave. That is what this is. That's what they're explaining. That's what he's explaining. And remember, I completely fucking disagree with this model. It is my model, and some of my friends' models are decentralized true ownership. This is centralized ownership. Because remember, they say you're a shareholder, but yet they have a middleman, which is the government. The government has to place themselves in there, or the governments are irrelevant. This is what I'm against. I want everyone to own a fraction of a bunch of companies. You talk about fucking diversified and real fractions where it's automated income through smart contracts. Okay, I digress. I love this guy's show because his information is accurate on their plan, but I hate this show because his information's accurate on their fucking plan. They're saying it out loud now. Oh, it's shareholder capitalism. Well, they sure in the fuck can't call it shareholder communism, because then that gives away the goose. It's like, yeah, this is capitalism. Really, what's the origin of the capital? Is it labor? No, we just print it and we issue treasury bonds, and that's the origins of the capital. So it's really not capital, because the definition of capital, or at least the old true definition of capital, is a produced item, or land was capital, because land could be built upon. Land had a production cost. If you were growing corn from the land, the corn is the product of the land. You couldn't just sit there and go, okay, corn, grow. No, you had to work the land. You had labor capital with agriculture capital that blended together to produce a product. And that corn was then capital because it had an origination cost. This eliminates that. There is no origination cost in our US dollar. Now, they say, well, it's actually based and it's associated with future labor, so it's debt. Future labor promise is a labor contract. That's a debt. That is a debt of labor. And that's what our treasury bonds are built on the promise of our future taxation through our labor. Well, all they're doing is replacing the labor source. And what now, if they had this system where the robots are taxed and all that, I'd have less of a problem. But this system requires them to have control of the capital. Because just like he just said, with direct digital wallets, a central bank can inject liquidity into a household during a crisis. Well, what if that household and the households around it have, as they view, too much capital? Well, the prices around it are going up, or this area is too rich. As they can inject capital, they can remove capital. That's what Europe is doing with the CBDC, because a CBCD can be set to, in a certain zip code or a certain area you live, that the money has an expiration date. Let that fucking sink in. That basically turns your dollar into a fucking banana. Well, I bought this banana 7 days ago. It's starting to turn brown. I better use it. That's what they're turning. You talk about a banana republic, that's fucking us. Because when there is a time limit on your capital, it's no longer a capital. Just like as soon as you grow corn, that corn has a time limit on it. Once it goes bad, the capital loses value. The older the capital gets, once it's ripe, lesser value, because you have less time to consume it. So we are going from capitalism to a banana republic to a banana money, where it's all on a timeline, which means if there's no fucking timeline, there's no retention or carrying value into the future, except for Bitcoin. And guys, I told you, look, with new technology, they have found a shit ton of gold. Hell, in El Salvador, they found a mountain full of fucking gold. They're not bringing it out. They're using it as a reserve. It's a mountain reserve of gold. And you'd ask yourself, why aren't they bringing it out? Why wouldn't they inject it into the system? Because then price of gold goes down. But if you have a reserve, then you you have the capability of mining without the injection of the inflation of the true mining and injecting it into the gold market. It's all just based on lies. In this new world of digital capital, the only true capital is going to be Bitcoin because it's completely decentralized. And the new economy will look something like this, except I don't want the fucking government running it. Because then, guys, think about this. What if the whole system is created with these companies who are too big to fail? If there's no risk of failure, then there's no responsibility of efficiency or production. There's no risk at all. Therefore, there's no reason to innovate. If it's a perfect example is the fucking post office. The post office, they are $30 billion in debt every year. That's a cumulative. So $30 billion a year, the post office wastes or loses. Their services cost more than the income they make. That's a broken system. That's absolutely, and these shitheads want to duplicate that model. And because all they care about is the system. Well, as long as the system's operating, well, what if it's not working for everyone? Well, the system can adjust. It's the controllers of the system, not the want or the need of the individuals. In this system, no matter how much you want, you're limited. Because what's the encouragement of advancement? Well, if you get big enough, we'll plug you into the system. No, this eliminates competition. This leads to what we have now in pharmaceuticals. You think the pharmaceuticals, these large companies, do you think they really fucking compete with each other? Fuck no, they're a cabal, which means they price fix together. They aren't like, you know what? All right, if we charge less for our drug, more people will use our drug. Or we can call up our friends over at Bayer and we can say, hey, we're going to charge $1,000. You guys also charge $1,000. And then we make sure that we kind of split up the doctors half and half. You know, you have your network, we have our network. And, you know, because guys, this is absolutely true, and I'll tell you why. Because they share invention technology. They license out their technology to each other. Because it's like saying the Federal Reserve in Washington, D.C., that entity is in competition with the Federal Reserve of New York. It's all part of the same fucking system. All of these pharmaceutical companies are just members of the pharmaceutical cabal, just like the Federal Reserve is just separate members of the same fucking cabal. When you have a cabal, there's no competition. That's why it's a cabal. See, for years, everyone went against, we got to watch out for monopolies. We have to have YouTube and Facebook and Instagram or Instafuck or whatever you call it. They're all like, look at all the diversity of and X, pre-X, when it was Twitter. They're like, look at all the competition in social media. And then we had COVID and all of the censorship. They sure enough fuck didn't act like they were independent. Seemed like they were more of a cabal. That they were the social media and the media cabal, because they all fell in line. Elon was the only one who actually bought X and then created competition. This is the future. This is the future. Unless we create a new system, which is what, here, let's watch the rest of this shit show.
Be just printing money, because quantitative easing is printing money. Those stimulus checks are also going to be dividends, which is tax and redistribution directly from the automated enterprises. That is the simplest and most frictionless way of doing it. So the future of economic participation is I think that means shift. So we had a small error here from Notebook LM. Shift from earning your keep to owning your share. The labor-mediated cycle ties human value to labor time. When machines are more productive, human labor is devalued. The capital-mediated cycle ties human value to citizenship and shared ownership of productive assets. Now, one thing that was not covered here is that when you...
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. There's only a minute left in this. I ain't even going to listen to it, because as soon as I heard shared ownership of productive assets, boy, that sounds a whole hell of a lot like fucking communism. Shared. That the capital mediated cycle. The problem I have there is mediated. That means metered. That means they choose your allocation. Well, what if you don't politically agree with them? Are they going to mediate it? Are they going to mediate you? Because the word mediated means the ability to adjust. Well, if they are mediating the cycle, how much are they going to mediate to me? Sure in the fuck ain't going to be much, I guarantee it, because I'm going to be motherfucking everybody in this goddamn system. Ties human value. Listen to that. This is such a communistic fucking, even how it's worded is fucking communistic. Ties human value to citizenship. Oh, wait a second. Are we all now just global citizens? Remember what a citizen is. It's an employee of a corporation, of a nationalized corporation. That's what a citizen is an employee of a nationalized corporation. That's us. and shared ownership of productive assets, or as the Communist Manifesto likes to say, eliminate private property and have a collective ownership model of the means of production. Doesn't that kind of sound a lot alike? Because it fucking is. This is the brave new world explained while they hand you fucking flowers. Welcome to the new economy. Shared ownership in this great land of ours. Yeah, fuck you and the horse you fucking rode in on. Because we have a different system. And I, for one, am going to live in this new system. And we are going to create this new system. I'm not leaving it up to fucktards like this to run our new economy. Our new economy is decentralized. This is centralization of production with what is seen to be decentralization of allocation of earnings. That's what it is. It's just a lie. The government will distribute you your portion of the production capacity of the nation, i.e., bread lines, motherfucker, bread lines. But it's going to be digital bread. You gonna get your digital bread. You ain't gonna have to wait in line. It'll come right to your little digital bread wallet. And then you'll go out and you go shopping with your digital bread with the rest of your fucking retard owners of the communist digital system. And you guys will say, oh, how wonderful it is here in Utopia. How wonderful. Oh, wait, look, what time is it? Oh, it's the 2 minutes of anger. Yeah, let's all yell at the screen. At the awful angry nation over in Eurasia that we all yell at every day to make sure that we remember that we're at war, and we've been at wars for fucking 50 fucking years because Eurasia bad. Guys, do you want to know what whatever it is, like 2 or 3 minutes of anger is? Pick up your motherfucking phone and get on Twitter. That is your moments of rage. They just replaced the big screen with a bunch of little ones. Who am I supposed to be mad at today? Let me find out. Oh, it's them Democrats. Oh, it's them progressives, which I am mad at. Fuck them. Or it's the liberals. It's the people with the purple hair. It's the Muslims. It's the Jews. The Jews. Let me hop on my little phone and see who I'm supposed to rage at today. But don't rage at the government, because the government's here to help. Ask Ronald Reagan after he got shot how well that fucking slogan went over. This is the system eating the human nature. This is the system finally getting rid of those annoying humans. This is just a digital zoo, guys. Well, bless you. We are literally just getting put into our little digital wallets and our little digital phones. And we get to play with the other animals. We get to go out and wrestle around on Twitter. Oh, the door opened. They're feeding us now. That's what they want to create. Fuck that. We need true decentralized productivity. Now, will we use automation in our new system of decentralized ownership? And I don't mean government ownership. I mean direct payment, not from a government, from an organization that is producing profits. Direct payment through smart contract. Fuck the fucking government. They don't produce. No one walks into an IRS office with a smile. No one's like, wow, this place is nice. Wow, I hope the person's nice. Boy, I wonder what kind of product the IRS is going to give me today. Hope they hand out those little IRS cookies. No, they are there to extract the value you have created. Oh, you went to work? You totally busted your ass at work? Yeah, we're going to need a little some of that. Yeah, because we don't really produce anything. We don't have any real capital. We print it. In fact, that's what you're fucking paying us with. Worthless money. This is all an illusion. There's nothing backed by anything. There's nothing created in Washington, D.C. except bureaucracy, and bureaucracy doesn't have a profit, it has a price. Not if I got nothing to do with it. Because the system I'm working to create, and a lot of my friends, shout out to Michael Saylor, I have more of a clear view of what he's building now. Shout out to fucking Michael Saylor. The dude's got balls as big as fucking hubcaps. Because he's up against the mega beast, which is Vanguard and BlackRock. You want to know who his enemies are? Vanguard and BlackRock. And their little henchman, Jamie fucking Dimon. Well, we are going to produce the companies we are building are going to produce value. Private key capital is going to produce value actually based on a digital asset, the Bitcoin. And we are going to improve people's lives. And we're setting it up as a decentralized ownership. Because that's the only way it works, guys. Either we as private companies share ownership with the rest of the world, or at least people who are smart enough to realize we got two choices. Their system we just watched, which is a fucking shit show of slavery, or a decentralized system of production and capital exchange that is spread out over true ownership of assets. We are going into digital capitalism or digital communism. And everyone watching this, hang on a second, I got a light of smoke. This oxygen's fucking with me. Toxicity. I'm back. All right. Digital capitalism or digital communism. And they are going to sweeten the pie for digital communism. See, they're going to build a town. Have you ever watched those old Western shows where they'd created all of the fronts of the buildings, and you walk down the road in the center of a town and it looks like a town? It has the salon, it has the brothel, it has the casino or whatever for the fuck they call them, gambling or saloons or whatever. But they're just the frontage. There's no real buildings. There's nothing behind it. That's what they're creating. They're going to show you. They're going to walk you down the middle of the road and go, look at all these amazing things we built. Ooh, let's go into this one. No. You can't see what's in there. Sorry, that's national security, Because as soon as you walk in there, you realize it's all just a fucking illusion that comes from the Federal Reserve. All of the money isn't going to come from production. Think about this. What if one of the companies is not producing adequate value for the shareholders? Do you think they're going to close that company? Or do you think the Federal Reserve System, recognizing there's a lack of capital in company 10572B San Francisco, let's inject capital into the wallet of the corporation and just give them a little bit of a loan, just a little something to get them by, so they can distribute their digital shareholder capital. This whole system is reliant on a central distribution point of Federal Reserve. Now, they might try and change the name away from the Federal Reserve. They may call it the American Reserve. And when it goes global, which it will, it's just going to be a system of control. I'm sorry, citizen number 49752-752 USA. You're not allowed to fly over to Dubai. Your travel for the year has been used up. We're sorry. Your carbon footprint has reached its yearly allotment. And you know it's all true. You know this is all rolling out. You can't watch that and go, that's as far as they'll go. Really? Because they're progressives. The word progressive doesn't really explain the end, does it? Once they put in this system, do you think all of a sudden they're just going to go, okay, we've progressed enough? No. And a system is any progress in a system is removing freedom or operations from another system. As their system grows, what shrinks? Your individual freedom. That's what shrinks. Because if everyone's receiving their money from the system, then the people are reliant on the system. Can you make a free choice if your paycheck comes from the system? Can you choose to work outside of the system? Can you tell the system to fuck off? No. Because the system, just like East Germany, They didn't put up the wall because so many people wanted to get into East Germany. They put up the wall so motherfuckers couldn't get out of the East German system. This is the East German system without walls. And why is it without walls? Is it freedom? No, because the whole system, if it's just the system, they don't need walls. If the whole world is digital communism, why do you need a wall? You don't. You just regulate the doorway through anything. I'm sorry you can't fly. You've used up all your travel credits. I'm sorry, your allocation for meat has been reached this week. Have a veggie, motherfucker. Any system that grows removes freedom. I'll give you a prime example. Neighborhoods. Neighborhoods used to be the thing, man. Oh, can't wait to move into a subdivision out in suburbia. What happened? All of a sudden, you have this neighborhood. And then what evolved? HOAs. Oh, look. That unhappy 55-year-old fucking woman's got something up her ass again that she's bitching about. And she's gathered all the other fucking busybodies. And they've created an HOA. Super. What does that infringe on? What color you can paint your house? How often you have to seal your driveway? How long the grass on your lawn can be? Any system with the capability of infringement will be infringed upon. That's why Bitcoin. Because the network cannot be infringed upon. It's true, fuck you money. Give me your Bitcoin, fuck you. Well, I'll just take it out of your wallet, will you, motherfucker? What's my seed phrase? What's my password? What if I have a shared wallet? What if it's multi-sig? What if it's triple sig? Oh, you can't take my money. Yeah, fuck off. See, liberty is not freedom. Liberty is an environment in which they cannot institute consequences on you. That's liberty. The Bitcoin network is a liberty network. No one can infringe on you, no matter how hard they fucking want to or how bad they want to. They can't. Fuck them. And we need to get used to saying fuck you. You should practice it at least like 2 or 3 times a day. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And that fuck you is meant for the government. Because without the government, this system doesn't work. Hence why we and others, once again, shout out to Michael Saylor, is why we are creating the system we are creating. It's why I caught, all right, with the ownership shares of our clubs and our credit union and our mining, the coins we sent out as ownership representation, I had those minted on the Bitcoin blockchain. Everyone asked, dude, why Why don't you use one of the cheaper blockchains? The reason I used the Bitcoin blockchain is what I just said. If you own one of our ownership tokens of our companies, no one can take your ownership token. I can't get a hold of Ethereum and go, hey, can you roll this side chain back? No. Any system, any network, any money, any ownership shares should not be able to be reversible. Ever. Ever. That's freedom. That's freedom. That's when you own your shit. And I know I've been going for an hour and a half. I'll wrap this up as quick as I can. Sorry, guys. You know me. Once I get in a rant, I'm in like a groove. Last night, guess what I learned? I am up in Massachusetts. And shout out to, I won't use his last name, Steve, our local farmer up here in Massachusetts. Do you know that they can no longer use their own seeds for next season's growing? Think about that. They can no longer use the seeds they grew for next year's planting. It's against the law. They have to purchase seeds from I think there's like 2 or 3 companies. They have to purchase seeds through these companies. Sounds a little bit like communism, doesn't it? You gonna get your seed from the company store. Boy. This is where they're trying to take them. Bingo. Bitcoin Gypsy nails it. Just use them. Fuck off. That's what I told him last night. I'm like, dude, just use them. Tell him to fuck off. Because there's areas of like Massachusetts, they're very rural. I wonder how, if whatever agency from the government showed up at his property to force him, I wonder how quickly a whole bunch of farmers would show up at his house with guns and go, welcome, boys. We about to have us a hoedown. Yeah, this is why we're creating the system we are creating. Oh, and just to let everyone know, all right, for the mining company, I set aside 10% for individual shares. That's if you, in the mining company, there's 100,000 shares. It will never be increased or anything like that. 100,000 shares. I set 10% aside for individual share purchases, because this is how we have to do it. Because if the only people who own the shares are wealthy people or well-off people, how the hell is that going to help us? It's just the wealthy or the rich or the well-off just getting more wealthy and more rich and more well-off. We have to build a system where the guy who owns one share is just as relevant as who owns 1 or 10% of the company. This is how we have to build it, because if we don't, that's the system they're going to build. That's the system they're already building. That's why I launched years ago doing this, because I knew this is the plan they'd roll out. We have to work together, because I'm telling you guys, as they roll out this system, they aren't gonna give a flying fuck about any of us. Why? Because we are the resistance. You think that they're gonna roll out this system and go, hey, Bitcoin Ben, how you doing? Yeah, here's your American wallet. We promise we aren't gonna censor your transactions. I'm going to be the first motherfucker they censor. So, if you're interested in shares of the mining company, we have set aside individual shares for the general average public. And your representation of ownership is a document and a digital asset that was minted on the Bitcoin blockchain, so it can't be fucked with. I'm here to win, guys. I'm here to win. I'm here to outcompete that shit system that we all just watched. If you're interested, there's a link under here. I think it's under all of them, BBBshares.com, I think. Or you can give us a call, 941-391-3882, and you'll be talking with Bamboo Ben, and he'll walk you through it. Easy peasy. We have to build it, guys. Because if we don't build it, they are building their system. We have to have our own system. Okay, thank you. It's bbccshares.com. There's a link right under here. Own the future. Do not fucking be a slave to it. Because I'm not going to be. I don't give a flying shit if it's me and just fucking Michael Saylor out there. That's good company. All right, everyone, have a great day. Once again, give us a call or send us a text, 941-391-3882. Love you guys. Oh, and if you hurry, we have an owner's call in about 20 minutes because I've gone long. If you own shares, owners calls are for, I don't know. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. Everyone, have a great day. I love you guys. Give us a call, 941-391-3882, and I will see you guys on Monday. Have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.
From the oil fields to the blockchain revolution, one man saw what others missed. Bitcoin Ben, an ex-truck driver turned Bitcoin pioneer, didn't just change his life. He's changing the game for everyone. This is the story of the Founders Group Worldwide, where private key capital meets American innovation. Watch your portfolio grow across real estate, resorts, mining, and energy. All Bitcoin aligned, all building wealth the new way. This isn't just investment. This is community. This is belonging. From exclusive club events to global networking, we're not just making money, we're making history. The old rich had their secrets. Now, it's your turn. Powered by Private Key Capital, Founders Group Venture Capital opens the door for everyone in the world. The revolution isn't coming. It's here. And it's time to choose your side. Join the new rich revolution. Call 941-391-3882. Visit foundersgroupworldwide.com. Your future starts now.